Great. Orly, thank you so much for joining us. Again, this is I'm Chad Jemison with Bright Ideas Realty, and we have the great pleasure of being here for our Small Business Thirsty Thursday happy hour with Orly Reznik of Reznik Law. And we are so thankful to have you join us. And Orly, could you maybe just jump in and introduce yourself a little bit, a background about you and your family and how long, sort of where you're from and how long you've been in the Cary area?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, Chad. Well, thanks so much for having me on here today with you. I think like everybody else in Cary, or the majority of people in Cary, we originally moved from New Jersey, but we came a while ago. I guess we've been here since 2009.
Oh, wow.
So, and we kind of thought that this was going to be a stepping stone for us, right? We were living in New Jersey. We wanted to get further south. We thought maybe Florida, maybe South Carolina. And then a job here came up for my husband, and it just turned into everything we never knew we always wanted.
Yeah.
And we've stayed. And my whole
Stepping we're already there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and my whole family followed us here. So now my parents are here, my husband's parents are here, my sister moved here. So we're definitely rooted in this area and not going anywhere, that's for sure.
That's terrific. So tell me a little bit about sort of your law background and then what brought you into estate planning.
Sure. Well, so I always wanted to do estate planning. I'm a dork, right? I'm a nerd. I just loved estate planning. When I was in law school, that was my favorite class: wills, trusts, and estates, and taxes. So that's definitely something that I always knew I wanted to do. Got my first job out of law school. It was 2008. Economy, things weren't looking so good.
Yeah, that was a tough time. I remember reading stories about that. Like there was like 50% job placement or so for that class of 2008, 2009. It was tough.
So when I was offered a position doing the farthest thing from estate planning they could possibly put me in, I was doing environmental litigation. I took it thinking, okay, this will be a stepping stone and I'll find my way into the estates division, and it never quite happened at that firm. But then the opportunity to move here came up. So I took that as a chance to, shift career paths and get back into the field that I was always interested in. So I started working for a small estate planning firm here and just, loved it, and eventually started doing my own thing.
Wow. So you joined a small boutique firm, it sounds like, and got your feet wet in that arena. And then tell me, what made you take the switch over to start your own firm?
So shortly when I started to think about starting my own firm, it's when I had my second child. So I had a 9-month-old at home. That was just a crazy time, right? Second kid comes along. It's hard to juggle everything, work full time. And the other thing that started happening was everyone that I was meeting, everyone in my network, they were in a similar position to me, right? They had young kids, they had busy careers. And when I would talk to them and they would acknowledge that they needed to do the estate planning, they couldn't find the time to do it, right? They're too busy. Nobody wants to take a day off of work to get that done, or they've just had a baby and it's just too hard to get everybody out of the house. So that just started to get me thinking that, there's got to be a better way that I can serve clients and meet them where they need to be. So I left the firm and slowly started something part-time, going to people's houses on evenings or weekends, just, basically finding any time that we can to get this work done.
That sounds a lot like real estate.
Yes. Right?
In some ways, like you kind of acknowledge people's schedule. Like we do a lot of appointments in the middle of the day, but there's a whole lot that happens after dinner or after the kids go to bed, if they have young kids, just to have that clarity of thought to be able to have a conversation with your partner or your spouse to have important conversations. Sometimes you just need to clear the shelf, clear the table in order to be able to, have those important conversations.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It's very, very similar to that.
Yeah.
So, and Yeah, so it just kind of grew from there. So I was working part-time, going to people's houses on evenings or weekends, and then, word of mouth has just been, wonderful. So started with a part-time office, then a small office, and then just this past October moved into a larger office. So it's sort of, I'm just following the lead where this business is taking me, but it's been wonderful.
That's terrific. So, Orly, tell me a little bit about this. So, I've heard some different thoughts. There's some people who are planners who probably have their prenuptial
Right.
and like the day after they're married, they've got their will put together before they're even thinking about having kids. But I would guess that that's probably not the majority of people. So, tell me a little bit, like, what are some of the prompts other than like just feeling of like wait that this is something I ought to do that often prompts someone to step into the process of estate planning. So what are the motivating factors when people come and reach out to you, but also what would you recommend as like really best practices for folks to consider with estate planning when they're getting started in the process?
Right. So usually the motivating factor, there's I'd say three of them, right? And one of them you already mentioned. Some people are just planners, right? It's just in their nature. They're going to plan. They're going to do everything that they need to do. So they know this is something that they need to address, and they do it. I have another group of clients that unfortunately what prompts them to do estate planning is, something has happened in their lives or something has happened in the lives of somebody close to them, and it's made them realize that this is something that they really need to have. Maybe it was something that they didn't think they needed to have, but some life event has happened and now it's come to the forefront. And I'd say what was happening, say before, everything that's going on right now, couples taking their first trip together without the children. I would get a lot of spring break, summer vacation. People are calling me because they're going to be traveling for the first time and they just need that sense of comfort. It was something that, they just wanted to make sure that they had this document in place, or that was a condition for their grandparents, for their parents to watch the children. I say, well, I'm not going to watch the kids for you to go on this vacation unless you have these documents in place. So
No,
those are your
grandma, grandpa, that might be a great like Christmas or Hanukkah present or something like
right.
that that are giving your kids at some point of your like as they're starting to have kids. I mean, that's something that it takes a little bit of wisdom and living life, I think also. When Lisa and I first started having kids, like we were in our late 20s or early 30s, and like that just didn't feel like a reality that was immediately there. But it's amazing what living life. I mean,
Right.
I'm in my early 40s now, and just having lived life, you start knowing, it becomes a whole lot more real, I think, as you are just a little bit more aware of it. I can think of, probably at least half a dozen folks who have, where that would have been really nice to make sure that that was all set while they were in their early 30s or so, or in that time
Right.
period. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's, it's just part of adulting,
Yeah.
part of having children.
Yeah.
I think anyone who has a child, having these documents in place is very important for them to have.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, one of the things that hold people up from doing this planning is, they think that maybe they don't have a perfect plan, right? They don't have the perfect person to put as a guardian, or they don't have the perfect person to put as their agent on the financial power of attorney. And so they're very reluctant to put anything in place. But, we have the discussion that, they're still the best person, right? You're still the best person to make that decision, even if you're choosing from imperfect options, because the alternative is somebody else making that decision for you. A judge, right? Somebody who doesn't know you, doesn't know your family, doesn't know your circumstance. So even if you're choosing from imperfect options, it's still better that you're the one making that choice and you're the one making that plan.
That's a great way to think about it. It's okay for it not to be perfect.
Right. Because
So I imagine this is a pretty big conversation for couples to consider. If
yeah,
that's sort of a stage in life where they're starting to think about it if you have kids, and I like the word adulting that you use. What what is some, I imagine like in real estate, um, there is some counseling that you do in helping people through this process. Um, what's some strong advice in addition to like that it's okay if it's not perfect. Most people
Right.
update their documents every 5 to 10 years, I would imagine. Um, so what's some other advice as people are thinking about stepping into this that you would give them to think about?
Right. So for some people, it's very overwhelming. They think they're going to have to think of a lot of heavy decisions at
Mhm.
one time. And these are things that, most people perhaps haven't thought of yet. So we just take it one decision at a time, one topic at a time. And I let them know that the initial estate planning consultation, right, our first meeting, it's an initial meeting. It's not the only meeting. So it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay if there are still questions, and we work through it. We work through that process. And the way that I work with, my clients might be a little different from some other attorneys, but I'm very involved and I make myself available. So even if after our first consultation, somebody needs to, go over what a trust is again, they need to, hear again, how do I choose a guardian or what's the guardian's role? We'll have a follow-up phone call, we'll have another meeting, and we'll walk through and make each decision one at a time. You don't have to take on everything at once. I think people think it's more of an overwhelming process than it actually is.
Yeah, that's great feedback. So walk me through the process. There's sort of an initial consultation that you would have
Yep.
or initial meeting.
Right.
And then is it typically a couple week project, a couple month project? Tell what are the like maybe 3, 4 key steps in the process?
Right. So yeah, it starts with an initial consultation. Right now, all of that's happening virtually. I used to love meeting clients in my office, and I hope one day I'll be able to do that again. But right now, we're doing the initial consultation virtually. And then, after that, I start drafting client documents. So based on the initial consultation, we go over everyone's goals, what the concerns are, asset composition, and we put together what the best plan looks like. If there's any questions that are still outstanding after that initial consultation, then we'll have a follow-up call to fill in those blanks and work through those issues. And then I draft the documents and I send them out. The clients get to review them, and I move as slowly or as quickly as the clients want. Some people get document drafts and they call me up the next day and they want to walk through them and they're ready and they want to sign. Other people need more time with them. So that's okay. I kind of take it at the client's pace. And then once everything is finalized, we have all the questions answered, then we meet to sign the documents. So my document signings look very different right now than they used to, but we are still doing document signings. I think we've come up with a very creative and safe way to get these documents signed. We do them outside on Sundays at the parking lot of my Apex office, so the parking lot's empty.
It sounds like the mafia meeting or something like that. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll meet you at the back parking lot behind the supermarket.
Yep, and I'm
great.
actually working with
But it worked.
2 other estate planning attorneys, and we get together on Sundays, and all of our clients come, and we have tables set up. Everybody keeps a safe distance, brand new pens, brand new clipboards, and we're just rolling with it right now, right? Figuring out what works. How do we navigate life right now and still get things done that are essential and we need to get done?
I was having that conversation earlier today with a coach of mine, and we're talking about like, the reality is many of these elements, they could still be here 6 to 9 months, 12 months from now. And so it's kind of just like the sooner that we're able to embrace some practices and just normalize it a little bit more, I think it allows people to keep moving forward, because things like this, they're not necessarily urgent that they happen at this exact moment, but as we're kind of coming out of this, like this sort of new normal, like let's start looking forward is coming back into play. And I think people that are in mid-process are already thinking about it. If it was on their sort of family annual goal to get this done this year, I think that whether it's, setting up your estate or a real estate transaction like we're seeing, people are really starting to come out. I don't know if you've noticed it, but we've seen a big uptick in about the last 10 days in people's like coming out of their lockdown internally and like, oh, my head's clearing out. I'm able to look forward and start making some plans to go forward. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think I saw the opposite with
Yep.
my practice. The first 2 weeks, I'd say March,
Mhm.
when I think things were very much unknown and people were very scared, right? We're going through something that we've never gone through before. The, my phone was ringing like crazy, and just trying to calm people down and say there's not this impending sense of urgency. We're still going to be able to get things signed. We're still going to be able to get this done. And estate planning is something you need always, not just now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's kind of stayed steady since then.
So let's say folks are maybe in their, I don't know, late 30s, 40s, 50s or so, and maybe their kids are more like teenagers at this point, at that point. What are some of the strategies, or what are some of the things for people to think about when they're updating their will at different stages in, maybe in their 40s or 50s?
Yeah. So it really depends on what your planning goals are, and at different stages of life, I think everybody's focus is a little bit different. When you have younger children, guardianship is usually the most important thing. Most of my clients that have kids, I'd say under the age of 22, finances are also very important for them. They usually want to include some sort of a trust in their documents, because even though at the age of 18, kids are considered adults,
Yeah.
everyone's level of
There's some
maturity.
air quotes around that, right?
Right. So, you can extend the protection that you give your children with any potential inheritance. You can extend that protection through a trust, and you can do that up until any age. So usually once kids have reached that age, if it's 22, 25, 28, where that trust ends and it's no longer a consideration, that's when a lot of people will once again revisit their planning, because now they have adult children and they want to assign some of those roles and some of the responsibility to those adult children. And then the next time where somebody might revisit these documents, or maybe when they're heading into retirement, if they're moving out of state, that's definitely a reason why you're going to want to revisit your planning. But when we do the initial plan and we start off, we try to put as much forward thought into the documents as possible and account for all these different changing circumstances. In an ideal world, anytime there's a life event or a change in circumstances, we would revise our documents, but that just doesn't happen, right? It's not always possible. People are just too busy. So we try to put as much forward thought so that even if you have a set of documents that you've put in place when your kids were young, they can still adapt and address issues that your family might face as you enter those next stages.
Yeah. I would imagine that separations and divorces also might make that there's some complication in there too. So at what point, I was thinking about what other partners might be involved in there. There may be, you bring in financial advisors sometimes. You bring in, if there's a separation, is there like do you have to interface with a family court in certain circumstances to help figure that out?
So those are great questions. A divorce or separation is definitely a reason why somebody would want to revise their estate plan. Sometimes, depending on the separation agreement, especially if there was a trust involved, then we might have to get involved with the family law attorney so that we can make sure that whatever they've agreed upon in the separation agreement is also reflected in the trust, so that the children will wind up getting what they're supposed to get. And financial advisors can play a key role in estate planning, especially if we're setting up trusts. Not everybody has a family member or a friend who is a great financial manager, right? So if you're setting up a trust and you don't have a family member or a friend who can serve as your trustee, then we can look to financial advisors. We can look to some professionals who can maybe even take on that role entirely, or be written into the plan as an advisor somehow.
Great.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. I mean, you have so much to offer, and I think a lot of families, it's on their to-do list. Like, they know in the back of their mind that they really want to have it, but Can you tell us, like, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach out?
So there's a lot of different ways to reach me. I answer my own phone, so people can definitely call me, or they can go to my website and schedule a phone call or an initial virtual consultation. And my website is carriewills.com. So if you go to carriewills.com, you can schedule a phone call with me, and all my information is there as well.
Awesome. All right, hot seat, Orly. We're going to switch subjects real quick. If I can put you on the spot for some, as a decade plus long West Cary resident here.
Okay.
Where is one of your favorite places to go for a walk with your family?
So I have a new favorite place to go for a walk now, and that is the bridges that they have built on the, I guess it's like the Hortons Creek Greenway. It connects Amberley Glen to the neighborhoods across from Hortons Creek. My kids just love it. There's something about going over a bridge, and I think
they're elevated, right? They're like 10 feet off the ground. That's so cool.
And some of them are really long, like they go through like wetlands and are like a stream basin, and so they love to do that. I'm trying to keep up with them. My daughter just learned how to ride a bike, and my son is on a scooter. I do not have a bike right now, so that means I'm on foot jogging after them. So that's not pretty.
What is so if you had date night, what are some of your favorite restaurants to go out to?
So we're not really big foodies, and probably because I have a lot of food allergies, so I'm not the most fun to go out to eat with because I can never share anything. But we love comedy. So before the Improv opened, we would go down to Good Nights, probably 5 or 6 times a year. That was our favorite. So I love that the Improv was open.
Yeah, so the Improv right at Parkside Town Commons, like a year ago. They've had huge acts. They had, like, Tracy Morgan was there, Arsenio Hall. Who else? Someone else who stands out to you that you've seen there?
So we saw Pete Holmes. There's a lesser known comedian that I really like, Kellen Arkshine. We saw him. We did go see Tracy Morgan. We saw Ken Jeong, and we saw Craig Robinson from The Office.
Crazy that that's in West Cary. Like when we moved here in 2013, I never would have thought like this national comedy center would be right here at where the Target was going in. I love that about this area, that it's not just all chain type stuff. There are some of these real gems that are popping up in this part of town.
Yeah, I think you're not the only one that's surprised that the Improv is there. The talent is usually pretty surprised when they show up, and they're right across from a dental office and a nail salon. And they're not in Raleigh at all. They're usually a bit taken aback by that.
Yeah. That's all right though.
Right. Hey, works for me. I'm glad it's less than a mile away. I'll take it.
Nice. What's something that your kids have been involved in West Cary or in the area that they've really enjoyed?
Television watching. I think really? I have indoor children, I'd say. Yeah, we're not very athletically inclined over here, so just getting them on a bike and a scooter and outside, I consider that to be a win. They love the school. I think both my kids go to Hortons Creek, and they can't wait to get back in there. That's for sure.
Yeah. Have you come up with any like tips or tricks to like keep homeschooling going pretty well, or and while you work from home, like what's working for you guys?
Quitting kindergarten, that works really well for us. That's pretty much what we're doing right now. Just I'm fortunate that my daughter is a self-starter, so she can handle that on her own, but I'm sure you can relate having a kindergartner and trying to work from home. They need a lot of hands-on attention, interaction, assistance navigating the platforms, and we're doing the bare minimum, and we're doing the best we can.
I think that's been the hashtag of the month in the last like 4 to 6 weeks. Hey, it's the best we can.
Yeah, and if that means that some days school doesn't happen for him, it's okay too, right? We're trying to give ourselves a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I think so too. I talk to my mom when we get together, and she sees the when we're not in lockdown, like the speed of our life. And she's like, I remember back to that 20, 30 years ago when I had 3 kids at home. I look back and it's like, I can't imagine how I did that, but we just
Mhm.
did it. It is what you do. And I think that a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're going to look back at this time and just be like, whoa,
Yeah.
that was intense. You know, we made it through it, but that was really intense. So
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Definitely.
Orly, hey, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to have you on. And I love how you support the school. You mentioned your Hortons Creek, your kids are there, and the support you show to the school there is great. And just really appreciate your time and what you do to serve our community here. So thank you.
Well, likewise, Chad. It's been really great chatting with you. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.